stand up. Please stand up. The Cover 3 Deep Raiders podcast here with myself, Dwayne Douglas, Sean Oahu Raider, and Monster Mash. Ken, hit us up on that text line. It's 858-429-9465. And just a couple of cities who are listening to the Cover 3 Deep Raider podcast: San Diego, California; Dallas, Texas; Marlboro, New Jersey; Chicago, Illinois; Atlanta, Georgia; and Walsall, England are listening to the Cover 3 Deep Raider podcast. We have a guest on our show today. He is Scott Gilbranson of the Silver and Black Today and Raider Nation Radio. He's also, sometimes is the interim GM of the San Diego Padres. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Great to be with you guys. Enjoy the conversation. It'll be fun, I'm sure.
Yeah, so how are things going on in Nevada right now? Did I say it right? Nevada?
Oh, no, sir.
How do you say it? I get it wrong all the time. How do I say it?
Nevada.
Okay, Nevada. Yes. Okay, Nevada. All right, yes. Good.
Yeah. We get a little touchy about that.
Yes, that's why I know I'm asking you. That's why I always get it wrong.
Good, man. Yeah. That's right. See, that's right. You asked and you get it right. That's how you do it, right?
Exactly.
But it's good, man. The football season's over, and of course the Raiders didn't make the playoffs. So for us on the radio side, doing a radio show daily for 2 hours a day, and then you have 3 shows on the station that are all Raiders focused, it gets a little thin, and until now with the combine being canceled, obviously, which stinks for everybody, you just kind of have to keep, fill it in with other football news. Obviously the playoffs are still going on, so that makes it a little easier. But, I think it's just everybody's wanting to get past this. And it was such a bummer for the Raiders to finally get here to Las Vegas and then not be able to have fans there. I mean, going to the games, I can't tell you, man, I didn't like it. I really did. It was great that I got to go in the building and watch the games, but without Raider Nation there, without the fans there,
the same.
It was so sterile. Yeah. It was terrible. Yeah, that was terrible. So, but
yeah.
Other than that, man, doing good. We're still waiting for some rain, but other than that, Sean, you got to send us some rain, man.
Yeah. I don't have any rain out here in California either, so I'm the same thing for us. Disappointing season, 8-8, not exactly what the Raiders had in mind. Of course, the drought, everything about the playoff win and everything like that. Gruden's third year, going into his fourth now. Is the fan base, the new fan base in Vegas, are they still excited to have the Raiders, or is it more of like, that, hey, this is more of the same, they're not achieving what they need to achieve?
Well, I think people were excited they were coming here, and they're excited they're here. Of course, the results on the field speak for themselves. No one can look at it and say that it was a good year. I'm sorry. I mean, it was disappointing all the way around. You improved by 1 game, and that's fine, but that's not what you expect in year 3. Year 3, we talked about it on our show. To me, the floor was 9-7. Okay, so if the floor is 9-7, you hit 8-8, and 9-7. I thought in the preseason with the expanded playoffs because of COVID, I thought, hey, 9-7, you're a wild card team, right? Yeah. But it didn't work out that way in the AFC. So I think people here are excited, but again, they didn't get a chance to see them, right? They didn't get a chance to get excited at the beginning of the year when they rolled in and they were 6-3. It was definitely a different feeling. There was a buzz around here, but I'll tell you, even without that, look, it takes time, I think, for people to have it all sink in. And so much of that is going to games, being able to be around players, going to training camp, being able to see players out at autograph sessions, and none of that happened. So I was surprised how prevalent Raiders merchandise, license plate, for all the stuff that you expected, that, if you're in the Bay Area or in Los Angeles, you see all over the place. It really sprang up here, and people are happy about it. It's just that I don't think they're as excited as they would be if we would have been able to go to games.
The defense was probably the biggest part of it. As much as people go back and forth with Carr on the Twitterverse, the defense was definitely the main culprit as far as keeping this team out of the playoff race down the stretch. That and red zone inefficiency, if you will. Who did you want the Raiders to get as a defensive coordinator? And, do you feel more comfortable with Gus Bradley not you know more about him, or do you feel like, hey, this is just a retread coach? They could have got somebody better.
Yeah, I like the idea of Wade Phillips. I know a lot of fans did, even though it was a 3-4 system, and Gruden said, "Oh no, I prefer a 4-3." And that's the thing with Gruden too. By the way, when you listen to things he says, 70% of the time it's misdirection and he means something else. So you have to kind of be careful. I try to tell people that all the time. It's always reading between the lines and then between those lines. But I thought that he would have been great because they need to turn the defense around. I've said, I make no bones about it, this next year is vital. If it doesn't get done this next year, and I went on the radio this week and said, listen, I don't think that making the playoffs is enough next year. I think you got to make the playoffs and win a game. Yep. It's year 4 and you've invested all this draft capital. You have a quarterback who will be in season 8 or 9. I can't remember now all of a sudden. 8. That's right. Thank you. And you're paying him a lot of money. So if that's the case, then you better deliver. And so for me, I thought the quickest way to do that, because I've said all along with Q Myers, who's on the show with me, I've said all along, listen, all you got to be is a middle of the road defense. You don't have to be top 10. Top 10 would be great. That could be a lofty goal for the future. But if you were a middle of the road defense and you have a top 12 offense, you're in the hunt there, and you get in the playoffs. Anything can happen, right? But they couldn't do that, and so I thought that Gus Bradley, when he kind of emerged, and I made all the dot connections of, okay, oh yeah, Gruden gave him his first job and all that kind of stuff, because that's at the end of the day, that's what the NFL is. It's very incestuous. It's all about guys who know each other and came up together. Doesn't matter where they came from. So with that happening, Gus Bradley, I was like, and then I did. I studied a lot more. I watched a lot of film. I talked to Gilbert Manzano. He was on our show. He covers the Chargers. I talked to him on the air and off the air to kind of find out what's going on. And I felt more comfortable with it because even though a lot of people were upset with the cover 3 in the zone, all that stuff, he does adjust. And I think that this is a guy who can teach. And I think that's what the Raiders need is, I don't know how good the defensive backfield. I don't know. I mean, Damon Arnett looks like he has talent. He was immature, didn't play as well as he could at times this year. You have Jonathan Abram, to me, is a huge question mark. Raider Nation can love him because he's a badass. But other than that, he hasn't stayed on the field. He hasn't made a lot of plays. And so to me, you need somebody who can come in and be a master teacher, right? So he comes in, he's got a record of that. Then he brings in Ron Miles, the defensive backs coach, who is great. And if you look into Ron Miles and know what he's done over the course of his career, it's phenomenal. So that made me feel a lot better about it. I was lukewarm, and the more I study that, and the more I look at that, I think it's a good hire. But at the end of the day, it can look good, it can look mediocre, whatever. They got to get it done on the field. And at the end of the year next year, or I should say at the beginning of this year, this is all a mandate on John Gruden. Can John Gruden get it done? I mean, that's plain and simple.
No question about it. I'm gonna take it to Hawaii now and take it to Sean Oahu Raider.
Thanks again, Scott, for being on out there in the ninth island, as we call it.
That's right.
Dwayne's question is a great segue into what I wanted to get at, which is, from a fan's perspective, the salary cap is causing a lot of concern right now because you get Gus Bradley, but okay, is Gus have everything he needs? No, he's going to want some players in free agency, and he's going to bang the table in the draft. So with that being said, we talked about, the draft capital Gruden's already, had corralled from Khalil Mack, from Mari Cooper, from trading away Conley, even the third rounder, from all the things that have happened, but he's been in-house, and not enough of that has turned into something to break 500 in 3 years. They're sub 500. My question to you is, with free agency period looming next, while trying to maintain a top 10 offense, something's got to give with some of these contracts. Either they're restructures or maybe trades or maybe just straight cuts or waived players. Your sense from covering the team and being in the city, what do you see could be some of those moves for players to open up the salary cap, and also like what would be your big surprise there, surprise move that they might do?
Yeah. I think number one, listen, I think Trent Brown's a done deal. I mean, everyone I've talked to has indicated that that's the direction. I think that's not a surprise. Terrell Williams, obviously you clear that out. Yep. I don't think Gabe Jackson's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to stay. I think he's too valuable. Plus, you now have holes on that offensive line because if you let Trent Brown grow, you got to fill that spot. Then Richie Incognito, we still don't know if he's going to come back. from that injury. It's harder to come back from that injury when you're older. So there's some question marks up front on the offensive line, but I think you have to. I mean, the NFL, the modern NFL, because of that salary cap and because of the salary cap hell you're going to see all teams in this year because of COVID, because of the reduction, they're going to have to make tough choices. I wonder what the surprise cuts will be. I think there's going to be guys that get cut loose that you're like, what, what happened? And then there's some guys that, to get better and to not only just free up contract space, but also to free up space on the roster. A guy like Carl Nassib, yeah, you're on the line for a lot of money for a guy who wasn't that great, but do you blow him out anyway so you can get somebody in? So I think what they're going to have, they structure deals and how much money they give guys up front versus contracts so that they can free that up. But I do look at that. I mean, they look at Mariota, right? The Hawaiian. You like having him as a backup, but can they afford him? I don't know. And so they're going to have to look at that. And then you look at running back. They still need – see, that's the thing I keep telling people, Sean, is with as much need as they have on defense, I think they have quite a bit of need on offense too to shore it up, right? Because you need another running back. I mean, you have to have a better running back because Josh Jacobs, love the kid. He doesn't stay on the field at this point, right? And so we have to see somebody who can come in and play more for him. So I think if you look at the roster and what they might do on that offensive side of the ball, definitely offensive line. On the defense, I mean, you clear up some guys like Malik Collins. What do you do with other guys? Not huge numbers, but Arden Key and some of these others. I would expect them, and I've been saying this the last week, I would expect them to try to make trades and be active in that area and then go get a big dog free agent on defense. Whether it's, I would hope it would be on the defensive line. And then you can go get some veterans too for the defensive backfield, because I think they need that too. But to me, there's no easy answers. That's the thing. The cap space right now, they're over $7 million before they make any of these cuts. And then do they approach some of these other players about restructuring contracts? I think you're going to see that too a little bit to see if they can get some of these guys to restructure so they can free up money, including Derek Carr. They might go to him and say, hey, listen, you got 2 years left if they decide that they are sticking with him, which it appears that they are. So if they're going to do that, then let's free up some of that money. We'll give you some up front and then we'll back end it, because that's what they need to do. They need to free up that space. And if you're Derek Carr and you want to win, you're getting, up there, you're only 30 years old. Yeah. But you're going into year 9 and you want to win, then hey, be a team player, free it up. I mean, Tom Brady did a lot in New England. There's all kinds of deals. So I would expect them to do that. I would expect them to try to restructure a lot of deals so that they can free up as much space as they can. But I don't think they can address the defensive needs in the draft. I mean, they might be able to address one need, but they got 3 or 4, and I think they're going to have to be very active.
No, yeah, great answer. I really appreciate it. We didn't even talk about Lamarcus Joyner's contract.
Oh,
we didn't even talk about trying to keep Nelson Aguilar, who is your number one, before him going. So it's very complicated. It's chess. It ain't checkers.
That's right.
That's from train day. But it's
but
crazy.
That's why, Sean, you can't miss on draft picks.
No,
because the most valuable thing in the NFL, as one former GM told me, what the most valuable thing in the NFL is a rookie contract. Right. So because you get that guy, you give him a big chunk of money up front, especially if they're high round draft pick like Henry Ruggs. But that contract is so team friendly for those first 5 years. And so you kind of have your window. So the offensive window for the Raiders is now. So you can't wait 3 years to develop young players on defense. You have to do it now.
No, good answer. And then next one I got is kind of interesting because I'm sure not a lot of people ask you about special teams. But John Carlson, he had a monster year. He had a historical year for the Raiders. I know Gruden doesn't want to kick field goals. I know they need to do better in the red zone. They need to get those weapons, Ruggs and Brian Edwards and these guys they're spending these draft picks on. Foster Moreau getting more snaps if Witten's gone, things like that. But what do you do? Again, we're talking about putting all these pieces together, salary cap. What do you do with John Carlson? Do you pay him? Or do you go with undrafted free agent what was his name? Dominic Eberle, who they had out of Utah State last year. Do you go young? Do you let them compete in camp? Because John Carlson, I mean, that's another cost on the table. What's your sense with Gruden? I know he's frustrated. He doesn't really want to focus on special teams and defense, but that's got to be something in the back of his head because he was a money kicker this year in the NFL.
No, he was. I mean, he set the record. And so to me, it's going to come down to priorities and trade-offs, right? So at the end of the day, look, if you can go get a big edge rusher and maybe an experienced safety on the back end, right? And you got to spend your money there, and the money's out. What do? You have to you go out and get a good young kicker who might not be as proven as Carlson has been and had a great year. So it seems crazy, but you have to make those trade-offs. Of course, you can't bring somebody in who's not reliable. So you're taking a gamble there. But to me, those are the tough decisions, right? Those are the tough decisions in the modern NFL because of the salary cap. So you have to decide what you're going to do there. So what they do on special teams, what they do with Carlson, it'll be interesting. That's why this offseason, there's so many moves. I think fans get focused on the big moves, the sexy moves, but you bring up a great point, which is, hey, this guy he's going to want to get paid. And if you have to pay him, can you pay him? And maybe you do, again, some sort of structured deal where he gets a nice bonus up front that's not as impactful on the cap. Or you compete and say, or you just go get somebody else. I mean, I think you'll see some of that. I think you'll see some players that'll, again, surprise you when the Raiders have to cut them loose.
Right on. Thanks. I'll pass you on to Ken. But my thought on that is maybe for Gruden's conservative stubbornness at times, hey, give him an unreliable kicker and maybe we score more touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, I've said that all along. I at the end of the season, I thought, as bad as the defense has been, there's no question. I'm not questioning anything about the defense, but I will tell you that the offense sputtered at the end of the year. It did not do well. And, everyone's, the offense did great. Well, yeah, it did for 3/4 of the season. And you can't ignore that because you got to finish strong. I don't care if your defense sucks or not. You have to finish strong. And the Raiders offense didn't for a lot of different reasons.
Hey, Scott, it's Ken. First and foremost, you compliment me on my shirt, the Warriors. I'm a big Warriors fan. I gotta compliment you and your background bullet with Steve McQueen in the back. I see that, man. I'm a big Steve McQueen fan. That's rad.
Me too, man. He's my man. And you could see. Oh, I don't have the one up here, but I have a license plate too up here. I have Dan Tana, which is from the old Vegas show in the '70s. You guys are all too young. And then the Smokey and the Bandit one. But I also have one from the Bullet Mustang, the California plate as well. It's just not up right now. So yeah, no. Hat tip on the Steve McQueen noticing. I love it.
Yeah, that's rad. So I just got to ask you first and foremost, thank you for giving us Raider Nation Radio. You're a big part of that. I tune in all the time. I commute. I'm in New Jersey. I commute to New York City every day, so it's a long commute. And without Raider Nation Radio and all the great podcasts out there, but Raider Nation Radio is just awesome. So I got to talk to you about that for a little bit. Sure. We were lucky to get Hondo on last week, and just, man, we walked away from that interview just excited. But you get to talk to him all the time, and Uncle Hondo just brings the fire. So talk to me about Raider Nation Radio. Did you ever think that you would be such a critical part in something like that for Raider Nation?
No, I mean, when I go back to 2017 and I decided to start the website, silverandblacktoday.com, I was a reporter earlier in my career. I had done radio in college. When I went to UNLV, I was on Sports Fan Radio Network, where this older guy used to come in. He wasn't much older than me, and he was all gruff and grumpy. His name was JT the Brick back then, even. And so I did radio in college and then kind of got into athletics and worked at UNLV in sports information for a while. And then I went into the PR field, and then I ended up having a big corporate career. And so I kind of moved away from sports media and sports and was just a fan for a lot of years. And so when the Raiders got approved to move to Las Vegas, I said, I'm going to jump back in. And I really wanted to do a website. There's great news websites. There's great fan websites. There's great fan podcasts. There's great professional, like a prognosticator and betting podcast. I mean, that's the great thing about today is that the democratization of content is awesome because you can kind of find whatever you want. And so for me, building that, I wanted to build a brand around the Raiders, which is ironic for a guy who grew up a Charger fan, right? So, for me, football, the Chargers, I kind of, when I left San Diego back in 2010, everybody there, and I had friends that worked for the Chargers for a while and stuff, and they were like, this team's going to move eventually, Scott. They're going to move. So I lost touch, and I kind of lost my NFL fandom. I was a fan of football. I lived in Kansas City, which was brutal because I hate the Chiefs too. And so I was in Kansas City, and I just started watching football. So I watched all the teams and all that stuff. So when I got back to Las Vegas, I was working in boxing at the time. And so I came back and, when I was done with that, I was like, man, what am I going to do? I think I need to write. I wanted to create content. And so I started the website that moved into a podcast, which we did pretty well with. And in 2018, we won the Nevada Press Association Podcast of the Year, beating out the Review Journal, which every time I remind them, they don't like it, but even though they're all friends of mine. But I just wanted to get involved, and I was so excited about the Raiders coming to Las Vegas. And people were like, "Oh, you're a Charger fan." I said, "Well, yeah, I was a Charger fan back in the day, but I'm a fan of the Raiders doing well." So when people ask me, "Are you a Raiders fan?" I say, "Well, I don't call myself that because I don't feel like worthy of it. Number one, because I've never been a bandwagon guy anyway, so I don't just like hop teams." But for me, it was all about Las Vegas. My wife was born and raised in Las Vegas. I have 2 kids that were born in Las Vegas. My wife has 80 family members in Las Vegas. So we have a very deep history here. My wife's family came from Cuba in 1960, right? So they go a little far back. And so for me, Las Vegas is a big deal. This is where I went to college. I went to UNLV, met my wife, had my first child, bought my first house. So Las Vegas is important. So with the Raiders coming here, that was something I wanted to do. The podcast, I love talking, as you can tell. And so the podcast did well. And then I was able to meet with the folks at CBS Sports Radio here. And that's how we got that weekly show at first. And we were on Sundays and did that, 2 years before they moved here. And so I felt like, well, we're way out in front of it. And then by the time the contract for the Raiders was up and the station I was on put in for it, and didn't get it. Lotus Broadcasting, who owns Raider Nation Radio, got it. And it turns out that the program director there, just again, I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, man," I got a show. I got an audience. Would love to come over. And so we started talking. It turns out he interned for my brother in San Diego in radio, long story. But nonetheless, it was a small world. And yeah, to be a part of that and to be asked to do daily radio on an NFL flagship station has been an honor, and it's been great. And most of all, for a guy who grew up like throwing insults at Raiders fans when I was a young man, it was great because I have never in my life experienced better people who are more passionate. And sometimes it goes over the top, but nonetheless, I've never experienced it so much in my life. So now I'm like a defender. I go out and people are like, "Oh, Raider fans this and Raider fans that." And I'm like, "You don't know what you're talking about." I tell them about the charity work that independent fan groups get together and do and all this kind of stuff. I talk about podcasts and all. I said, "Look, you cannot find another team with as much passion and as much love and loyalty and family too. I mean, you guys all act like family. It's remarkable to me." And so it's been fantastic. It's been great. It's been a bummer this year because I was covering the team from a distance and they finally get here and then you can't even cover the team because you have to keep distance and you can't be around the players and all that kind of stuff. But developed a good relationship with Hunter Renfrow, who's on our show every Monday and all that. But other than that, it's been fantastic, man. It's been a true honor.
All right, I got two quick questions for you, and just you mentioned Hunter Renfrow, and my guys here know that I am the biggest Hunter Renfrow fan there is. I had 2 names circled that I really wanted the Raiders to get. Crosby was one, Renfrow was the other one, and I was so happy that they got. And I have proof because I took a snapshot of it, and I was at the draft that day. Max Crosby, dude, I had it in the 3rd round. I have it. No, 4th round. 3rd or 4th round, I think. I have it circled. I was like, I called this, man. I was so excited, and I text Mac. I hit him up on Twitter, and he said, "Yeah, man, we'll get together." Then he got too big for me. But you gotta next Monday. You gotta say, "Hey, listen, I spoke to a really big fan of yours, Monster Mash Ken. Tell Renfrow, man, I'm always pulling for him, and I'm always wearing his jersey on Sunday. So I'm a big Renfrow fan. So you're very lucky in that aspect." My other thing is, we just kind of get to the human part of Scott Gulbransen. You're in Vegas. What is If I'm coming to Vegas, I used to live in Southern California. I used to go up there for fun, 2 hours, 3-hour drive, whatever. Sure. And it's changed a lot since I've been there. If I'm going to Vegas for a Raider game next season, which is on my agenda, if COVID doesn't screw that up, what am I doing when I'm not at the Raider game tailgate or the tailgate? What am I doing in Vegas? What do you recommend? Where am I eating?
All the good Hawaiian barbecue places that are out here, right, Sean?
Yeah,
it's been Sean's family's invaded our the mainland, the 9th island, as he said. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Las Vegas, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. Like any big city now that's grown very fast, it has its problems, especially through the COVID era with people out of work and everything like that. But there's so much to do. You're so close to everything here. Like you said, I mean, you used to come up from Southern California. You can go down to Southern California. I can drive, like this weekend, we're going down to Arizona. I'm taking my kids to an air museum, and then we're going to Tombstone because they want to see where the OK
I,
Corral was and all that
I
kind of
I've
stuff.
been there lots of times, man. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
It's a beautiful drive too, man.
Yeah, I love people think I'm crazy when I say I love driving in the middle of the desert, but I do. And so Las Vegas itself, it's not all glitz and glamour. A lot of people come here. I remember as a young man, I had a history professor at UNLV, and he told me, he said, Las Vegas is sort of like the Detroit of the West. So I'm like, I've been to Detroit. It's not Detroit. And he said, no, what I mean by that is a lot of people come here and you can be really, really successful here, but it's not just a 9 to 5 town. So if you want to be successful, you want to make good money and live a good life, you kind of got to hustle. You got to work really hard. That might mean 2 jobs. That might mean 2 different things that you do and kind of have to work around. And working in a casino is like working in a car factory. It's constant, same thing over and over again. So the people who do it, I have utmost respect for, because they make our economy go here. But for me, that's it. I have kids. I had 5 kids. I have 2 of them now are older. 3 are still, in grade school. And so we have parks, we have hikes, we're 45 minutes from Mount Charleston. We go up to the mountains. We're 2 hours from southern Utah where we can go really good skiing. And so you're kind of close to all that. And Las Vegas, with all of the sin and the vice stuff that you hear about, you get out in the neighborhoods, man. It's like being in California, whether it's Northern California, Southern California. It's not much different. It's suburbia. We have grocery stores and they have slot machines in them. They have slot machines in them, but we have grocery stores and McDonald's and all the other stuff that you guys do. And we have church. We have more churches per capita than any other city in the country, probably because you need them, right?
You probably need to ask for forgiveness.
Exactly. The confessionals are full. So from that perspective, Las Vegas is a really cool place. And, I'm concerned with it right now because we're getting such an influx of people from California who are fleeing because of high taxes and high real estate. And while that's how I was, I mean, I came in 1991 and back then there wasn't a big flood. Now it's a flood of people on my block alone. 3 houses sold in the last 60 days and they're all from California. Right.
Wow.
And so they're coming in and it's coming fast. And I just worry about the growth, right? I worry about how fast we can keep up with it, the schools, the roads, and all that kind of stuff. But Las Vegas usually builds very quickly and moves on things, as you can tell from the stadium.
Yeah.
So I still love it. It'll always be a part of my life, and I love being here.
Before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you if you can give Raider Nation a message for the offseason, what we're looking forward to.
Yeah. First of all, I think the first message I'd say is God bless you, because it's been a long time. And the loyalty there, look, I don't mind admitting, and people can be critical of me for it, but I gave up on the Chargers back in 2014. I was like done. I was like, they're moving. I was just done. Like the ownership was bad and all that. So for you guys who've hung through all that, you're better than I am. But I would tell you, I think that you should be cautiously optimistic. I know there's not, after this year, it's tough to be optimistic, but if they can make the right moves, and I think you'll see that if they can make the right moves leading up to this season, they have an offense that's there. It could be better, but it's there. And they have a defense that if they can turn around and they can get into that, 17, 18, 16 range of being in the defense instead of being 27th to 32nd, then I think you're looking at a team that can compete. The Chiefs are not unbeatable. We know that. The Raiders should have beat them twice this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Browns could have beat them.
Yeah, the Browns could have beat them this past week. And I'll tell you, the Chiefs, people talk about the Chiefs because of Patrick Mahomes, who I respect the hell out of, but they talk like there's some dynasty. And there's only one dynasty in the AFC West, and that's the Raiders. Yeah, it's been 18 years. I get it. But if you look at the history of the NFL, the Chiefs and the Raiders have been around the same amount of time. There's not even a comparison. So I would say that, I really believe that this organization is on the crux of that. If they don't get there after this next year, then I would be really concerned. And I would expect them to do something, even though John Gruden has a 10-year contract. Contracts are not like cement. There's always a way out. There's always some kind of negotiation that can happen. And I'm not saying I'm not saying people want that to happen. I hope John Gruden's successful. He's fun to be around, and his act is fun as long as it's a winning act. So that's what I would tell you is just hang in there, and don't get too high, don't get too low, right? So you'll see some of these cuts, you'll see some of these signings. I would do that, and just, keep your passion though more than anything, because even when people go over the top, I'm like, hey, it's coming from a good place. They care, versus some of these fan bases, like my old team, the Chargers, where they didn't even have fans at the end, and they still don't. So those one of those things where I think you also too will feel a better connection back with the team once you guys can all come here and go to the stadium. Because to me, this was not the first year in the stadium. Until fans are here, it doesn't count. And so I look forward to going to a game. And in fact, I want my first game next year to be just sitting in the stands. I don't even want to be covering the game. I just want to go and just soak it all in, because I soaked it all in Oakland before when I was younger and assaulted because I was wearing blue and yellow. But other than that, but it was fun. It was good. I got beer poured on me. I was a good sport about it. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I would tell you is just hang in there and keep your passion, man, because there's nobody in sports like Raider fans.
Yeah, his name is Scott Gilbranson. You can catch him on Radio Nation Radio, and the guy who runs the Silver and Black Today website, and all those good writers there as well. You see Mike Moulton is on there, all this stuff like that. So you guys do a lot of really good work. Thank you for joining us here on the Cover 3D Raiders podcast, man. We appreciate you, brother.
No, thanks to all you guys, and I'm sure we say things all the time we don't necessarily agree with, but I respect you guys, and keep your voice, man. Don't let anybody tell you what you say is wrong. Just keep going. Bring your perspective, because there's people who feel the way you do, and it's important that you talk to them. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Take care.
Take care, man.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Cover 3D podcast, the East Coast Nation podcast, the Put on Waivers, and the Blackout podcast. Please hit us up at Cover 3D on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
I want to thank Scott Gilbranson for joining the Cover 3D Raider podcast. A really great guest. And you can listen to him on the radio every day on the Radio Nation Radio. A couple intriguing moves here. We know Josh Jacobs needs a backup, and a guy who's a little bit better than Devontae Booker. You have two veterans available, Marlon Mack and Mark Ingram. Either of you two guys think that either one of those individuals would be solid backups? Both veterans, pass protection. Maybe Ingram's a better pass catcher than Marlon Mack. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, the Ingram news broke last night, I think, right, that they're letting him go. I think that's really interesting to me, because we're missing I think Jacobs is that all-around back. He can do everything, a little bit of everything. But you're looking at Ingram, who's just kind of like almost that bruiser role. I wouldn't say he's better than Jacobs, but he's really good. He's very good. And you look at him back at when he was with New Orleans with Kamara. That's what I would want. I would go there. Marlon Mack too. Marlon Mack is good, but if I had the choice of the two, I would probably go with Ingram. He's not going to be, the bell cow. So if he's hurt, he's not going to be. I mean, you saw how much Booker ran. If he did that same role, I'm okay with that. I think that's great, as long as the O-line's healthy and they can, make some things happen there. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I'm with you. Out of those two selections, there'll be more coming up.
Yeah,
Players going to get cut.
Definitely more.
There's going to be trades, but if we're just talking about those two, I'm going with Ingram, just on the basis of we thought Jacobs would have Isaiah Crowell backing him up during his rookie year. I think Ingram's physical. He's tough. He doesn't have a huge injury list. Like, he's been injured. All running backs do, but I feel like we need someone who's dependable. I would like to see Josh Jacobs' role move into, okay, let's get Jalen Richard off the books, and let's let Josh Jacobs play third down running back. Let's let Josh Jacobs catch the ball more. Let's Josh Jacobs go in motion pre-snap. Let's use him in those ways, like he was at Alabama, and bring in Ingram, he was Bama as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Bring Ingram, who can take care of more of the inside runs, more of the, the cutback stuff and the zone schemes and things, and just let him bat away and let Jacobs be preserved, just like he was at Alabama, where he was incredible. Look, I'm not saying Jacobs, we were writing him off. I'm just saying he broke 100 yards once last year. Like, there's just something that wasn't happening there, and wasn't just the offensive line. Some of his vision and things were breaking down. So bring in someone who could push him and or / mentor him. He's going to get the respect because they're both Bama alumni. I think that's a good fit out of those two. Marlon Mack, to me, I think just doesn't do enough. I don't see how much he separates his talent as far as like what Booker gave us. But I'm with you, Ken. I'm going Ingram. What about you, Dwayne?
I mean, for me, I like Ingram probably the best. I like Ingram. I like Ingram the best as far as that goes. I don't see a situation where, like, I would like to sign Ingram, get rid of the backfield we have, and then get a guy out of the backfield who's a burner from college. They need somebody who can take it to the house as far as a speed guy. Yes, I really think that's really 100% vital to what I think what the Raiders are doing. I like Jacobs. I don't think he has that speed to kind of.
He doesn't. No.
He's looking for contact too, which is fine. I mean, it's not really, if you can avoid contact sometimes, that's nice as a running back. Just to sit there and not have to take the beating. That's the thing that I don't want to. You don't want to have people do all the time, take the beating, and then you can't handle it. You won't be able to, finish the season. We want to see you finish seasons. And at Bama, I mean, maybe Bama, Nick Saban's pretty smart. Last time I checked. And when he was at Bama, they had a situation where he split the carries. Yep. And so just have him split the carries again and have that take place. I mean, to me, it makes the most sense to do that.
Maybe we can add a guy like Lynn Bowden Jr. with some speed out there.
Who?
Well, does he actually have speed? Like
the Dolphins MVP. Right?
I'm just saying. Yeah.
So I'm looking at Al Davis speed in the draft here. I like that. Get a young guy that can, that's going to run that 4.3, something like that. I know there's a lot of names being thrown around, but I think Richard has had his time's kind of up. Yeah. I like Richard a lot. I don't get me wrong. I like Richard a lot. He does have home run hitting speed, but I'd love to see them go young and then get somebody, a veteran back there that can is more of a bruiser type, and then let. I love that concept of just putting Jacobs in as the third down kind of shifty quarterback, or make him in the pass game. That would be awesome to see.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We'll have BD Williams of Tape Don't Lie joining us here on the Cover 3D Raider podcast. Back on the Cover 3D Raider podcast, we had Scott Gilbranson on early. Now we have the closer, if you will, Mariano Rivera for our show here. BD Williams from Tape Don't Lie. BD, how you doing today? Thank you for joining us here on the Cover 3D Raider podcast.
Hey guys, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Cool. You're on with Dwayne Douglas, Monster Mash Ken, and Sean Oahu Raider. Let's just get right into it, man. You're like me, film head. I love it. Love the show you guys have on YouTube. It's great. One of my favorite rappers is KRS-One. He had a song called Outta Here. Who is one of these guys who are going to be out of here on this defense because they don't fit Gus Bradley's scheme?
Well, I think that's the beauty of Gus Bradley's scheme. If you don't, you have to be a pretty bad player not to fit it. Okay, it's a relatively simple scheme. Okay, they don't ask guys to do a whole bunch of stuff. So if they can't find a spot for you, you're probably on your way out of the NFL at that point. I would imagine, Eric Harris isn't coming back. I would imagine guys like Nevin Lawson is probably, he's run his course. But I think most guys will be able to join. I actually think that there's maybe a couple spots that the Raiders are going to need to find either in free agency or in the draft of players that don't quite fit, or no one's really on the roster for Gus Bradley's scheme, particularly like a Sam Rush linebacker type of player, because he likes to run a 3-4 under, or a 4-3 under rather. So I don't think anyone like that is on the roster. So they're probably gonna have to make some moves and get a bigger linebacker who can hold the edge, because Gus Bradley likes to do that in base packages.
You saw a lot of the bigger corners have success, from Seattle days and stuff like that. Is Is a guy like Isaiah Johnson a guy who could really come in and flourish in this system? Those long arms, that big frame, playing that cover three.
Man, I sure hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I think, it just Gus Bradley's track record of success, getting guys to play really well. I mean, Brandon Browner,
Yeah.
he was almost like, Pro Bowler, all pro level when he was in Seattle, and it was just for a couple of years. Okay. And then even if you go and you look at what he did with AJ Boye and obviously Jalen Ramsey, I mean, come on, that's like a no-brainer, right? But then even this last year, they had a guy named Mike Davis. And when I was going through Gus Bradley's tape from the Chargers list last season in 2020, he was their best corner, and this is not a household name. So he has a great track record of success getting, relatively unheralded guys to play really well in his scheme. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm crossing my fingers, big things from Isaiah Johnson for sure.
Before we go to Sean, you had a clip you wanted to share with us real quick?
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, this is kind of sums up what we were talking what we've been talking about here as far as Gus Bradley having a scheme that's really player friendly. So if you guys can see the screen, this is just, this is cover three from Gus Bradley. Right now we're looking at the down safety. He's away from the tight end side. Okay. And they call this 3 flex. Okay. And now we're going to have a down safety. This time he's to the tight end side. So they call this 3 sky. And, watch this guy. He's a curl flat player. Okay. So if he's down to the tight end, if he's away from the tight end, he's still a curl flat player. Nothing really changes, just his alignment. And what it happens, because they play this technique so often, he makes this a really tough window for Patrick Mahomes to throw into. You can master something when you're doing it all the time, right? Now look at the down safety. This time he's a hook curl player. Hook curl player means you got to match 3 vertical when you have 3 wide receivers to one side of the field. This is one way for cover 3 defenses to match up with 4 verts. And then even if you look at they call this cover 3 Mabel, they're playing man on the backside. Okay, so they have so many iterations of cover 3, right? And I think that really the benefit of what this does is most of the guys are playing the same technique. Okay, most of these guys are doing the same things over and over and over again. It's just 1 or 2 players that are switching things up, and that allows everyone on the defense to play really fast. And that's one of the benefits of Gus Bradley's scheme.
Sean?
Yeah, perfect. What up, BD? Thanks again for having us on. It's great about that question, and Dwayne did this earlier in our interview, but another great segue leading in. So we're talking about cover 3. You're talking about the safeties dropping and all the coverage schemes that are going to happen. Gus Bradley, for me, like a player that I'm not as worried about Arnett. I'm not worried about Mullen. I think they've shown enough that they're young guys that he will come in and develop. The player I'm the most worried about is one who is just completely sporadic, completely exciting at the same time, as much as he is underwhelming, is Jonathan Abram. How do you think he will use him? And then also, do you think he will try to blitz him, as you've talked about the players in the past, Browner and other big guys that are aggressive and come up and tackle and hit? What do you see his role? And how do you think Bradley's going to get him involved from the jump? Because I think that we need him to just play fast.
Right. And that's really something that Gus Bradley does a really good job at, as, he finds a player's strengths and he just puts them there and says, okay, we're going to do this. And part of the problem with Jonathan Abram, he played free safety last year. He played strong safety. He played dime linebacker. He did everything. He did he had too much on his plate for a young player, and he was never, he never mastered any of it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think that Gus Bradley is going to put him in a role. We're going to say, hey, we're not going to run 15 different coverages like we did with Paul Gunther. We're going to run like 4 or 5 different coverages in a game. Okay. You're going to get really good at being, if he's the down safety, probably will be, he'll probably be in the box. Right. But you're going to get good at those things, at those few different coverages that you're going to have to play. You're going to get really good at it. And so I think, and that goes for everyone. Everyone in this scheme is going to be able to really focus and hone in on their technique, because it's a much more simplified game plan and cover package compared to Paul Guenther, who ran like every single coverage known to man. There's just like no way you could expect to teach all those techniques and get everyone, like ready to go, going up against, great teams in the NFL. So I think that that's something that's really going to help. And I also think the tutelage of this guy, Ron Miles, who's going to come over and be the secondary coach. He's had like 20 years NFL experience, just a bevy of Pro Bowlers that he's coached. He can say, hey, this is how Deshae Townsend did it. This is how, guys like Champ Bailey, like he's coached so many incredible names. So I think that that's also going to help someone like Jonathan Abram, Trayvon Mullen, David Arnett, all these young guys. They're really going to benefit from that.
Okay, so and I agree with you. I think he'll play down safety, and I know people say Bradley doesn't have like this huge tendency to blitz, but I think when you put Abram in the box, if there's something he's good at until he picks up coverage concepts and how he's going to play fast in his 4 or 5 coverage schemes, is he needs to hit people too. So they got to let him out the cage every now and then. And then I guess back into that would be Lamarcus Joyner. Okay, so he's had some success on the Rams. Some of his biggest plays, he's hybrid safety and lining up in different areas. How does he get creative with Joyner? Do you think he'd play him at high safety? I mean, we thought that would happen, and obviously Guenther was stubborn, and that just never came to fruition. He's guarding the slot often and things like that. Do you see Joyner as a guy that Bradley comes in and he's like, I'll find a role for you, and if it is, what do you see there?
Yeah, that's actually a tough question. I've been thinking about this for a while. I do think that if eventually, there's not really a slot corner on this roster, okay? Except for, if we're banking on Amik Robertson taking like huge strides, next year, which that would be awesome, But I personally, I did a film breakdown of him before the season, and I was like, this guy's probably not ready to, have major playing time in year 1. So we'll see how much he progresses, but I'm not sure if there is a starting slot corner. So I think that unless they find one, Lamarcus Joyner is destined for the slot again, just because you have to be in nickel at least 75% of the time in the NFL. Like, it is what it is. So that's kind of unfortunate for Raiders fans, because I do think that I think his best years are behind him, honestly, at this point. He did play better, to his credit. He did play better in 2020 than he did in 2019, which is not saying much, obviously. But so hopefully if just the simplified package and just not having to think so much. One thing that I really noticed with Paul Guenther is, like, yeah, he ran a lot of coverages, but within each of those coverages, there were so many checks. It was, you have to make, you have 4 or 5 different calls if you're in cover 4, if you have a couple calls in cover 2, there's a lot of adjustments, a lot of communication that needs to happen. And I think I noticed Lamarcus Joyner being out of position quite often, in comparison to what everyone else on the defense was doing. So I think maybe just having a simpler thing for Lamarcus Joyner to do, he can, maybe do it better. But I also reserve my judgment on any poor performing defensive players that played under Paul Guenther. We got to see what they can actually do with a new defensive coordinator before we could say this guy, needs to go, or this guy is good. So we'll see.
Right on, man. Well said. I'm gonna throw you out the jersey, Monster Mash can.
Hey, man, what's up? I like that. I think that we've talked a lot about the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, that was the big issue of why we're not in the playoffs, in my opinion. We're 3 plays away from being a 10-win team, in my opinion. So I'm going to go to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, there's this topic that just never goes away, and that's the Derek Carr topic. I want to know what your thoughts are. What more does Derek have to do? I'm not. I'm saying this is not as a Derek Carr stan or a fan. I'm a Raider fan. I just want the Raiders to fucking win. I don't care what they get. I just feel like this was not. I mean, maybe he lost 1 game, 2 games because of stupid decisions or whatever. But I thought he had a really good season. And we last season, offseason, we were calling for him to use his legs more, to throw the ball downfield more, and to be a little bit more aggressive. And he did that this season, in my opinion. But now it's like people are calling for Deshaun Watson. And if they make that happen, great. No, I'm all on board for that. But I don't think it's going to happen. But What are your thoughts on the Derek Carr situation?
I think that it's just a purely fan situation. I don't think it has anything to do with the organization. I mean, Derek Carr is, borderline top 10 quarterback in the NFL. It's pretty tough to improve that, get an improvement off of that. I agree that he took big strides throwing the ball downfield. He had this instant chemistry with Nelson Aguilar. That was pretty awesome. I think that there's something about a guy wearing number 15 that Derek Carr is just like.
Should they all wear 15? They should all wear 15.
Wear 15. But so he took huge strides. And really, you can point to some red zone struggles. And that is something that has followed John Gruden. Every year that he didn't have Tim Brown and Jerry Rice out there at the same time, he's had struggles in the red zone, John Gruden. So you could say that's on Derek Carr. Sure, you can, also point the blame to John Gruden. And then something that no one, I don't know why people aren't talking about this. The Raiders sucked at running the ball this year. Yes. Okay, they were not a good run team.
On this show, we talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was 3.9 a carry is what Josh Jacobs went out with.
Right. And so it's not good. I know that Raiders fans love to say that this is an elite offensive line. It's not an elite offensive line. Okay, whatever measures you want to go by, it's not an elite offensive line. They're pretty darn good pass blocking. They are not good run blocking. They need to improve running the ball. That's the kind of offense that John Gruden runs. He runs a ball control offense. Like it or love it, okay, hate it, whatever you want to do. If you don't have to agree with it. That's just the fact of the matter. He's got a 10-year contract. We're in for the ride, Raider Nation. He wants to run the ball, and he can't. Part of that is because first of all, you had a musical chairs of offensive line, and so that's always going to be tough because if any group needs to be, in chemistry and in sync with each other, it's the offensive line. And so that definitely hurt the run game. And then also, I'm going to take a deep breath before I say this. Rodney Hudson is not a good run blocker. He gets beat very often. He needs to get hidden by guards who are next to him, who are having a really good time. Run blocking, he's not good. He looked better when Richie Incognito was next to him last year. But even then, there were certain games when the Raiders couldn't get anything going. It's because the guy that Rodney Hudson was supposed to be blocking was getting so much penetration and just blowing him up in the backfield. So he's an incredible pass protector. He gets snubbed from the Pro Bowl probably because he put so many highlights, he's on the wrong end of like Quinnen Williams highlights and all these guys who he can't block in the run game. So that's going to be part of the problem. I don't know how you upgrade from Rodney Hudson, honestly, because that's going to be tough to do, but something's got to give. The Raiders got to do a better job of running the ball. And then, I think that's going to help the red zone offense. It's going to help, play action passing game. But like Monster Mash Ken said, if the Raiders just closed out a couple games, now we're talking maybe something different here. So,
well, obviously one of the things that we get to look forward to as Raider fans are for the past several years, we're in the dumps, and then off season comes and it's like spring again and we're happy and we're looking at all these new shiny toys and who's coming, who's going, what coaches are coming in, what coaches are going out, whatever, all this great stuff. So give it a couple of weeks and then we're back again. We're happy. Everybody's friendly again. So there's a lot of names being thrown around as far as free agency. There's a lot of needs for the Raiders, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball too. Offensive line being one of them with Trent Brown, Nelly. Tell me some names that you're looking at that you'd love to see the Raiders bring in. I know the salary cap is really tight, and they're going to make some hard decisions here. What do you think is going to happen? You can start with Trent Brown, and then you can kind of go over there what names you're looking at to hope they bring in.
Well, someone that is tapped into the organization, I won't give his name away, has been hit me up on the low, and he's been giving me a lot of information that has almost all of it has come true so far this year, and he's saying that Trent Brown's on his way out. The guy showed up to the season weighing 400 pounds. He got that big contract, and that's what happens. It's not just the Trent Brown problem. Plenty of players, Raiders, we've seen it as fans. You get that big contract, motivation kind of goes out the window. This happens all across the league, and Trent Brown doesn't seem like he was immune to it. So I think that, they're going to say, hey, look, we were able to protect Derek Carr this year. We were able to get things going on offense. We didn't have Trent Brown for the majority of the year. Let's just cut ties and use that money somewhere else, right? So I'm thinking that Trent Brown, the writing is on the wall for him to get out of there. And yeah, I think, I'm not going to sit here and gaslight you guys and tell you that I've watched all the offensive tackles that are free agents. I have not, so I can't really, speak confidently on that, on who they're going to go with. It seems like they like Brandon Parker. He played a little better than he did last year. So maybe, year 4 or whatever it's going to be for him is year 3 or 4 is going to be enough to maybe be a starting right tackle, but we'll see. So yeah, the right tackle position needs to be addressed. They're probably going to draft someone to play offensive line. They have to. There's just too many injuries. They need guys that are available all year long. It's so crucial for that position. Like, I don't know how often it happens where an offensive line gets you to the playoffs that, where half of them are hurt for half the year, that's got to be a pretty rare occasion. So the offensive line definitely has to get better. That's definitely something that I'll look at. But to be honest with you guys, I've just been diving so far deep into Gus Bradley. And I haven't even got through half of what my study is going to be right now. I was able to get a hold of Jacksonville Jaguars playbook while he was over there. So I've been kind of, dissecting all that stuff. So I'm writing articles and, having a lot of projects. I'll probably get into free agency in probably another month or 2, but we'll see.
Well, excellent answers as always. Thank you so much, BD. I'm going to pass you back over to Dwayne.
Do you think is Nelly coming back?
I haven't heard anything about that, and I really, really hope so. I mean, come on, seriously. If they're gonna pay Tyrell Williams, that kind of money, like pay Nelly that money, like he actually produced. Hopefully, they can, restructure some people, cut some guys, save some money, and bring Nelly back. But we are talking about like $13 million a year, probably, if you look at what the
tough.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
But you just drafted the first wide receiver taking the draft, and you took one at the top of the 3rd, and they didn't get as involved as we thought. So you have a proven commodity out there. He's the star. He made. Look at the 10 best plays on offense of the season. 7 of them are Aguilar. It's crazy. And the other 2 are like Waller. Like that's it. So
right. Yeah. It's also so remarkable. Like, sorry, but it's so remarkable. Like, this is everyone knows John Gruden. That's a tough playbook, and to have a COVID off season, to come in, Zoom meeting, and Nelson Aguilar immediately grasp all of this. Like, that's incredibly impressive. He's clearly a very, very smart individual, this Nelson Aguilar guy. So I would be very pained to see him walk in free agency. That would hurt.
Yeah, I guess you figured you get rid of Tyrell and just replace the money, pay him, or you pay Tyrell. I guess.
I think that's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Last one for me is, you mentioned the offensive line. John Simpson. There were reps where he looked good. There's reps where he got blown up. Can he be a piece where you say, hey, he's a guy who can fill in that guard spot?
I think it's probably going to have to happen, and it's good that he had these game reps under his belt. I watched his film coming out, and I was actually pretty impressed. I was surprised that he kind of, was a 4th round guard that got taken instead of, maybe a little higher, to be honest with you, when I watched his film, because he looked pretty darn good, especially for the scheme that he was in. So I'm confident that he'll be able to come in and at least be, solid starter. I'm not saying he'll be like a Pro Bowler at any point in his career, but we'll see. But I wouldn't lose any sleep if John Simpson was the day 1 starter next year at left guard.
Cool. Cool. Listen, BD, thank you for joining us here on the Cover 3D Raiders podcast. It's BD Williams, he and Marcus Johnson make up the team that do Tape Don't Lie. You gotta, if you want a football education, if you think you know football, go watch that show and then come back to me and tell me you know football. We'll take it from there. All right, brother. Take
guys,
care.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No
Keep
problem.
doing great things.
Yep. Take care, brother.
Peace.
All right. We're gonna one more thing before we go. The Tom Flores. Have you seen the beer commercials and everything like that? The
beer can.
Yeah, the Iceman thing.
Yeah.
I think that we're going wrong. I think they're marketing. I mean, I think the whole thing with him getting to Hall of Fame is going in the wrong direction in my mind. I just feel like they kind of put it. Yeah, I understand he was the first Hispanic ever to be a head coach in the NFL, but he should just go in the head. He should just go in just because his team's freaking just won. Yeah. Like that's part of it. But I think we keep leading with that, and maybe it's the times we live in too as well. But like his teams were good. There's people with folks who have two rings who are in there already. Like he needs to be there. I know they probably have a limit on some players, some coaches and players just make it hard for. What are your thoughts about Flores going in? I mean, I think, you got some guys in there who have two, he has some Super Bowls. Let's go.
I mean, you look at the culmination of how they put some of these guys in the fame, and when they're talking about it, they go over their entire career, and like you're hitting on that, they cover your contributions to the game, and not just who you were as the player or the coach, but your contributions to the game, and his are phenomenal. I mean, they really are. There's no. I understand probably what may have happened here with Flores, and as decorated as the Raiders were during the era he played, is he just kept sliding down the ladder. And then the game kept getting older and older, and then he became from an era that's further and further away, and the votes were just less attracted to him. But when you really peel it back and look, like, what void did he have? What argument do you have that he doesn't deserve it? So, I think it's cool. The marketing is different, like with the Coors Light and stuff. But
it's funny. It's kind of funny.
I think it's funny. I think for him at his age and where he's at in his life, and he's deteriorating, and time, has its toll, and it's coming for him. So I think it's cool that he's kind of being rehashed as like this, from the past era, this celebrity like figure. So I mean, it is what it is for him, but as deserving as anyone, and the Raiders have a ton of them, but just all his contributions to the game and who he was, and yes, on top of the fact being Hispanic and being in a game that was dominant, essentially through his era, was essentially just Caucasian and African American, and he was like a huge minority to the game back then when he had his time. But great news of fans. Our first big win of the offseason.
Yeah, I think he's got 2 Super Bowl rings. It's cool because it's with the Oakland and Los Angeles Raiders, so that's really cool. But maybe the reason why he hasn't gotten in. It's taken so long is maybe they're looking at his total career, and I don't think what did he play for the Seahawks? I think there was like 3 years there where he didn't have like a really good record there. I don't think they won more than 6 games or something like that. So maybe that's a ding on there. But still, like how many coaches have 2 Super Bowl rings? So it's frustrating, and obviously if you look at it as him being a trendsetter or somebody to change the look of the league, being a minority coach. I mean, that's something that's huge, I mean, you're looking at the Super Bowl. They're going to have the first female referee. That's huge. She may be her ticket into the Hall of Fame right there. So what's the difference there? So anyway, big ups to him. I hope that he gets in.
Hope he gets into as well. I mean, he just deserves it. I hate to see when they put people in after they pass away. Baseball is good. Baseball and football are that happens to them a lot. Listen, great show today. Got Scott Gilbranson at BD Williams. I mean, this is getting huge now. I'm telling you, this is the year of the interview here on 2021 Cover 3D Raider podcast. There.
We're gonna interview Sean's kids next, man.
Oh, man.
That'd be a good show.
This is my only break from that. So don't do that.
Exactly.
My daughter was watching one of her stupid shows on YouTube, and they were filming in Vegas, and there was a Raider sign in the back. She went nuts, and my wife called me. She goes, "Your daughter went nuts because she saw the Raider shield back on Blippi's deal here." Blippy, Sean.
I know Blippy. I don't like him.
Yeah, he's weird, man. There's stories about him, but she went nuts. She goes, "Look, Daddy loves the Raiders." I was like, "Yeah, that's right, baby."
That's funny. All right, guys. All right, team. Listen, thank you for joining us. Listen to us. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere else, Facebook. We'll have this up on YouTube in no time. So take care, everybody.
Peace.
Take care.